Last week we spoke on what is your expectation. And as we read from Acts chapter 12, from verse 5 to verse 16, we looked at the first church that was praying for Peter, and what God did cut beyond their expectation. Today, we'll be considering the topic, the danger of an unguided expectation. When expectations are not properly guided, what are the possible dangers? Still from Acts chapter 12, from verse 5 to verse 16, when Peter was locked up in the prison by King Herod and was waiting to behead him the following day, the first church prayed, and God sent his angel to release Peter. And Peter came to the house of the mother of James, where Rhoda opened the door, and they were astonished seeing Peter. So we want to look at when an expectation is unguided. Still borrowing from that case in Acts chapter 12, from verse 5 to verse 16. One of the dangers of an unguided expectation is insensitivity. One becomes insensitive to whatever the Lord is doing when our expectation is not properly guided. The first church was praying. Well, I don't know what the expectation was or what the expectations were, but God manifested himself by setting Peter free. And Peter came, but they were insensitive. Peter was knocking. They were insensitive to what Peter was doing. Rhoda, the little girl that was sensitive to it, went to open the door. Yet, the people in the church told Rhoda she was beside herself. So they were insensitive to know that God had answered their prayers and that he had done what they wanted him to do. So when our expectation is not properly guided, we become insensitive to the Lord's doing. Number two, danger of unguided expectation is that we engage in fruitless exercise, or we waste our efforts. Wasted efforts. God having answered the prayer of the first church, they still continued praying on the same thing that God had done, just because they never expected God to manifest himself the way he did. So as Christians, we can engage in prayer, fasting, and all sorts of spiritual exercises, even after God has done his bit. God answered the prayer of the first church. Peter was released, but the church was still praying for Peter. Wasted effort. Number three danger is the danger of frustration. In spite of all our prayers, people will say, we have not seen God do anything. We have not heard God. We have not seen the signs, despite the fact that God had already answered them. And naturally, when you don't see result, or you expected result for whatever exercise you engage in, frustration sets in. So the first church probably would have ended up being frustrated were it not for Rhoda, who was sensitive to the Lord's doing. Number four danger of unguided expectation is the danger of blackmail. When our expectations are not met, we are most likely to engage in blackmail. We blackmail God. Say, oh, God is insensitive to what I'm going through. Oh, God has failed me. Oh, God is not answering my prayers. And whereas he has answered, he has done what he needs to do, but just because our expectations from him are not right, or they are not what we expected that he would do, we engage in blackmail. And the other side of blackmail is that we can blackmail people around us. For instance, the first church blackmailed Rhoda. They told her, you are beside yourself. By implication, you are insane. We call people around us names, just like the church called Rhoda names, because our expectation was wrong or far away from what the Lord is doing. So when our expectation is not properly guided, we engage in blackmail. And lastly, there is weariness of the spirit. Naturally, man gets wearied when his expectations are not met. Proverbs chapter 13 verse 12 says, hope deferred makes the heart sick, but when the desire comes, it is a tree of life. So when hope is deferred, the heart of man becomes sick. When our expectations are not met, we get weary. Our hearts get sick, and we think God is not on our side. Whereas God has heard us, He has done what He needs to do. Just because what He's doing is not what we expected or what we anticipated, we engage in several other exercises that makes our soul to be weary. I pray for you that even as you pray and seek the face of God, may your expectations be guided aright, so that you don't get weary, you don't get frustrated. Are you feeling frustrated or getting weary after praying over a particular matter? Then my message to you is that you should check your expectation. Probably God has done what He needs to do, whereas your expectation is far from what the Lord has in mind. May God help you to guide expectations aright. In Jesus' name, amen.